Hi, I'm Mike Garrett. I'm the technical founder of Coppernote. We're a branding marketing agency that does a lot of web development. Here to talk to you a little bit about my experience in graduating, finding jobs, and some of the things that I've found over the years that have helped me tremendously. I hope to impart some of that knowledge on you. I graduated from graphic design. I have a BFA in graphic design from VCU. Graduated in 2009. And was right in the middle of the recession when my graduating class was looking for jobs. So it was quite a bit different context to try to find things. It was a lot more difficult. We were often in the same room applying for the same jobs as people that had been in the industry for 5, 10 years sometimes. So it was quite difficult. I've been very fortunate in my life to have people that will take chances on me, that will see some potential there in some way that they can get some benefit from giving me something that I may or may not be comfortable with or even capable of fully of doing. And I always step up to the plate to things like that because they're exciting and put in the extra hours to get something done. In a lot of cases that's led for me to a lot of relationships with people either in the industry, outside the industry, that can help me out, but I can also help them out. And that's one of the couple of things that have really kind of stood out for me is the things that I rely upon now running my own company. Part of that is the relationships, establishing those relationships and having a rapport with people both inside and outside your industry, but being able to kind of get that word of mouth or that job recommendation or something that you can rely on an actual person is incredibly helpful, either in looking for a job or running your own business. I can't put the emphasis enough that a majority of our business that comes in the door and that keeps us going is by word of mouth. It's a direct referral or a secondary referral in some cases. The other part that I mentioned was that hard work, spending a lot of time doing sometimes long nights or weekend work to get to the place that you want to be. If you're passionate about something, I'm very passionate about web development and building things online, then to get to that place you need to spend a lot of time on it. And in some cases it's not during your day job, just depending. To give you an example, like I said, I graduated from VCU with a BFA in graphic design, and I did graphic design, I did UI and UX right out of college, and transitioned from that over to a full-time web development career. And part of that was having a passion for it. On nights and weekends I would come and try to figure out how to build a new website or do something that I hadn't done before, but somebody recommended or something like that. And a lot of that was born out of frustration with the fact that the designs I was coming up with weren't being translated into what I was expecting online. And for me it's that self-sufficiency thing that kind of gets me going and keeps me running during those late nights. I was really fortunate at VCU to have a mentor that really guided me down the web path and taught me a lot of the initial parts of coding and tried to pique my interest in that direction. I was resistant at first, but once I started to get the hang of it, I really kind of fell in love with it. But it was still more of a hobby for me. It was something that I would do on the side. It wasn't until after my first job at a startup that I started to play around with some of those things. I could get some things done, like a marketing site, while they were working for the majority of the time on the application. And the developers were really appreciative of that. But it wasn't until I started at NGI Media that I really kind of dove deep into web development full time. They took a chance on me. It was somebody that at the company that needed more help on the development side, and I said I could do some of it. And it was grueling. It was a very difficult time, but going back and doing it over, I think I'd do it again, just because of how valuable that insight was and how the community kind of brings people together in the web development sphere to make sure that people know what they're doing. Before I started Coppernote, I helped someone start their own business called Web Development Group. And part of that was a relationship that I built over time of just going out and talking to people in the neighborhood, talking to people in the industry. And I lucked out in getting in to the company at a very ground level. There were only 2 or 3 of us. At the time, we built it up from scratch, essentially, into doing something that was very different than what we'd done before. That pushed me into a lot of things, leading teams, building out the way that our process was going to work, building out the types of clients that we were going after, how we would win those clients and things like that. But it was a long, hard road to get to that place. It took a lot of time and a lot of effort, and you have to kind of be that self-starter to push yourself to do those things. But it was that relationship that initially brought me together and started that company. And I've gained a ton of valuable insight just into doing something like that. I was fortunate at VCU in the design department. They really pushed us to master the basic techniques of color, typography, layout, grids, things like that. But also they taught us one of the most important things was that you are your own brand. You're your own company, essentially. You represent yourself in the best way. And that encompasses every part of you. How do you talk about yourself? How do you talk about your work? How do you present your work? Is your portfolio, does that match your website? Does it match your resume, your brand, your business cards? How do your emails come off? How are you communicating with people? Is it consistent across the board? It's your first stab into getting in front of somebody and representing exactly who you are as one concise package. And the other part of that was not just talking about what you have done and what you may want to do, but to put it into the context of a business. This is what I'm capable of doing for you. This is what I can bring to your team. This is what I'm capable of doing on my own, and whether that be to increase sales or increase circulation for a newspaper or something like that, or to bring in a different perspective on things that would lead to more engagement online. You have to kind of keep that in mind, that people that are hiring you in a lot of cases are interested in that piece and not necessarily in the branding work or the design work or the marketing work or what have you that you've done in the past. So it's important to think about that. It's not just a resume that you're giving out. It's actually a part of who you are, and you need to represent that appropriately. I've been on both sides of the interview table, of course, being interviewed for different positions, but I also worked on hiring a number of people, especially for the web development group, and continue through Coppernote. We constantly are interviewing contractors and looking for our first employee. It's always terrifying to go in front of people that you don't know. It's always better if you can establish a relationship ahead of time, if you're able to. If not, though, relax. The best thing that you can do is to be yourself as much as possible, to be comfortable with who you are and what you're doing, and to think about how that you're talking about yourself. Again, that goes back to your own personal brand. But in hiring people, when I've been on the other side of the table, I always am trying to figure out who the person is, whether they're going to fit within our team or at the company, whether they're interested in what they're doing, or if it's just something to pay the bills. And in either case, for me at least, it was always about making sure that the person was going to be happy there. That's not always the case, but it is something that is in the back of everybody's mind, is just even if you think about it from the perspective of will they still be here in 5 years or in 10 years. It's just as nerve-wracking for the person doing the interview in a lot of cases as it is for the person being interviewed. It's as much about that person representing the company as it is about you representing yourself to the company. And you need to keep that in mind. It will really make things a lot smoother when you're going through the interview process. So I want to leave you with just a few things. One is build those relationships. You never know how they're going to end up. In a lot of cases, both inside and outside the industry, whether you're doing that via networking or you're meeting people in different cases. I can't tell you how many people that I still keep in touch with from VCU and have bolstered our business, but also we've been able to help in different sorts of ways. But it's paramount. It's always going to be that personal connection that you have with somebody that's going to be the best bet in terms of pushing yourself forward. Second is make sure you always understand how you're representing yourself and you're thinking about how you're presenting yourself to a company, and that you're presenting yourself in the right way in all of the different means of communication, whether it be online, directly or indirectly, what have you. And finally, getting ready to do some work. Get into figuring out what you're passionate about. Figure out what is going to keep you going when everything else seems to not be making sense. Find that thing and grab onto it and spend the extra time to make sure that you're an expert. It will pay dividends. Even doing a little bit every single day builds on top of itself, and you get more comfortable and you can do more, but always pursue that. Again, I'm Mike Garrett. I'm from CopperNote, and I hope I gave you some inspiration. Always feel free to reach out to me directly if you have any questions or anything like that.